because that's who I want to spotlight. There he is. All right. And then we're going to unmute you.
All right. Can you guys all hear me?
No,
Yes, we're good.
I think we're good. I still have participants coming in. So if you want to just kind of introduce what you guys are about, but there is a ton of them. So this is kind of exciting. We've never done something like this before. So I'm super, super excited.
Awesome. We're very excited as well. So my name is Senior Master Sergeant Omar Baraza. I am the first sergeant here with the 336 Air Refueling Squadron at March Air Reserve Base. So we're very happy to be here. Just a quick briefing, health briefing. You're going to see us working really close to each other. We have all been vaccinated, right? So disregard the social distancing rule, right? So like I said, we're very excited to be here. Let me go ahead and introduce you guys to two of our main pilots and our main boom operator. So I'll let them introduce themselves.
And Mr. Omar, just to let you guys know, I'm recording because I know we had some students and teachers that weren't able to come today.
Okay.
So as long as okay, that way I can share this with these teachers and they'll be able to show their class later as well.
Definitely. Thank you.
Hey guys, my name's Damon Comp. I'm a major here with the Air Force. I was in the Navy for a long time, and then I switched over to the Air Force, and here I am flying the KC-135 tanker. So thank you guys for seeing us today.
Hi there, Captain Brandon Blodgett, another pilot on the KC-135 here.
And I'm Master Sergeant Jen Ventress, and I'm the boom operator here on a KC-135.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. Let me know if you're ready, and we'll go ahead and start that quick tour. We're good to go.
My doorbell is definitely slowed down a lot, so I think you might be good to go.
All right, sounds good. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and turn it over to them. Stand by, and here we go. All right.
So we'll just start. We're in the back of the airplane right now. What we're gonna do is walk forward and then show you the flight deck where we fly the plane from, and then we'll come back again and show you the boom pod where we do our refueling. But as we walk forward, you see all this red stuff right here. These are seats on the sides of the airplane where we can carry passengers. So we can carry up to 57 passengers in the back, along with all the gas that we carry, and also cargo. We can put a bunch of cargo like tools and equipment and everything on these tracks right here. And it secures to these tracks, and then we can just roll it out of this big cargo door right here. And on the side, we have these two like emergency exits, like you would see on a normal airplane, and those go out onto the wings.
You're trying to see over here what our airplane looks like. So there's a bunch of them on the ramp right now.
So this airplane is a in-flight air refueling aircraft. We basically get airborne, and we carry thousands of gallons of fuel, and we offload it to other aircraft that need it in mid-flight so they can do their mission. And if you look over at the airplane across the way there, you'll see that there is a apparatus on the back that's called a boom. All right. And what it does is it lowers down mid-flight. All right. And that is where we make the connection with the other aircraft when it flies up behind us. And that's how we offload our fuel. So if you look over there across the way, the boom is the piece that is in the back of the airplane that kind of runs along the tail on the underside. And it has two of these black little wing looking things on the back. Those are called rudder vaders. And that's what allows the boom to have be able to fly with the aircraft.
Cool.
And if you look back, you probably saw them, but these two things covered with red right here, these are the engines. We have two on each wing. So we have 4 really big engines on this airplane, and we need really big engines because we can carry a lot of gas, up to 200,000 pounds of gas. And that's about 28,000, a little over 28,000 gallons of gas. So as we walk forward, we'll show you, we have a bathroom in here that we can use. And then this is a little kitchen where we have an oven and we can make coffee and heat up our food.
So this is the flight deck. This is where we make the aircraft go and do what it's supposed to do. You have the throttles here, which once we get the engine started, we're able to push forward. It gives gas to the engines, and that gives us our thrust. And that allows us to gain speed on the runway and take off. Obviously, you pull back, and the airplane goes up. You push down, the airplane goes down, and we use the throttles to adjust our speed as we're flying through the air. We control the aircraft left and right and make our turns and coordinate with the other aircraft mid-air to meet up and give them their gas.
Other components that we have up here on the armrest of this chair, it's pretty cool. It's got these little buttons right here, so we can control. And then there's a little mouse thing right here, so it'll move around like a mouse in your computer, and we can control this computer screen from that, as well as this little screen down here. And then we each have our own little computers. This is where we put in the inputs that we want it to do. And then on Brandon's side, he's got 2 displays, and I have the same 2 displays over here, and that's going to tell you what the aircraft's doing, how fast we're going, how high we're going. It'll show you turns and banks and everything, so we can fly in the clouds without seeing anything outside by just looking at our instruments. And right here, we have the big handle right here. So once we take off from the runway, we'll call for the gear to come up, and we'll lift that up. And that brings all the wheels and everything up into the airplane. So it's nice and smooth when we're flying around.
So if you notice, there's probably hundreds of buttons and switches and lights that we both have to know about and coordinate. All the different systems on the airplane are ran through these different controls. To be able to do what we have to do, there's a lot of math and a lot of science that we're doing while we're operating the airplane. So to be able to kind of rub your belly and pat your head at the same time and do math is kind of something that we have to learn how to do. And make decisions as we're going throughout our mission.
And another thing that's kind of cool up here that you probably don't see from the back of an airplane that much is that these windows open up. So when we're just sitting here on the ground, we can open these up and we can actually taxi around with them open to get some fresh air inside. And then it serves as an emergency exit in case something happens and we need to get out quickly. We can go out this way.
Anybody have any questions so far?
Hey, if you have a question, you can send it in the chat. It'll be a direct message to me, and then I'll be able to kind of help because we have 250 coyotes in this today. So you guys can send a chat directly to Mrs. S or Mrs. Schmidt's guys, and I will try my best to see what you have. Somebody just said, what plane are you in?
This is the KC-135. It's an Air Force refueling plane. So it's a KC-135 tanker, and it's the same airplane as a Boeing 707, which they don't fly too many of those around much anymore for passengers, but that's what we fly. And if you look out on the horizon, you can kind of see there's 9 other airplanes here right now, and that's what it looks like from far away. And our main mission is to give gas to other airplanes. So if you look at the black thing on the end of that, that's called the boom. And Jen's going to talk to you about that in a little bit, but here's a picture on my phone. The boom, she will actually fly that down and then connect it to another airplane. And then once it's connected, and this is all while we're flying around, the other airplanes will call us on the radio, and then they'll come and meet up with us, and they'll hook up. And then once that's hooked up, I'm going to move this so I can show you the fuel panel right here. This right here this whole panel right here controls where our fuel goes. And we'll turn on a pump or two, and that will push gas into the other airplane from the back.
Another question is, how many people can you carry in that plane?
57. 57 is what we're authorized to carry. And we can carry passengers, we can carry cargo, we can carry fuel. So we have a lot of different missions that we can do on the airplane.
I've got, how high can you guys go?
We can go up to 50,000 feet. So that's almost 10 miles, like about 9.5 miles, maybe, up in the sky.
We usually don't fly that high though. That's the very limit of what we can do. We usually go about 40,000 feet if we're going for long distances.
I've also got, how fast can you guys go?
So there's a lot of different speeds, and it goes into how high you are in altitude and everything like that. But we can go almost as fast as the speed of sound. Not quite that fast, which is, depending on your altitude, 400 to 500 miles per hour.
Yeah, so we measure things in the airplane in knots, which would be nautical miles. In your car, you do it miles per hour, which is we would be measuring statute miles. So there's a little bit of a difference, and we use we use nautical miles, which is a little bit different, and then we measure that speed based upon that. So that's why it's important to know your math and your science and how these different things work, so that you can get into these types of jobs later on in your future.
There are so many good questions popping up right now. I've got, how do you see if there's a lot of clouds?
Well, once you go into the clouds, you can't see outside. So at that point, you're going off of your instruments, and you can't see anything right now. But this right here, this gauge is a backup gauge. Normally we have digital, or digital gauges right here that tell you how fast we're going and the altitude and everything. But we would be relying off of this, and you're just flying your instruments.
So we have this system right here. It's called a radar. And what it does is if you look at the airplane over there, you see how the nose is black on all these airplanes. Underneath that, there's an antenna that shoots out radar, and it can actually give us a visual on our screens of clouds. And so we can actually see that there's clouds out in front of us, or something that we don't want to fly into, and we can avoid that. But we can dial all these different knobs and switches here, and it'll help us see on our computer screens what the weather looks like out in front of us.
And a lot of people ask about autopilot. We do have a really good autopilot on this airplane. You turn it on with this button right here, and as soon as you turn that on, then you can control it up here. So you could press your airspeed, your vertical speed, which is how fast you're going up or down, your heading or navigation. So that will tell the airplane when to turn, and it'll do all that stuff by itself when you program what you want in there.
Yep.
So you can fly hands off by pressing some buttons.
Yep.
I also got, how far, what's the furthest that you've flown before?
The farthest I've flown was from here at March Air Force Base to Germany on one leg, and that's about 7,000 or 8,000 miles.
Yep.
I might have them beat.
Yeah, I think Jen's got it.
So I used to be stationed in Washington State, and we used to fly from Washington State. We would fly over the North Pole, over Russia, and go fly. One of our bases was kind of in the Stan areas, and that's the furthest I flew. That was a long flight. It was. And we did fly over the North Pole. I saw Santa.
And another question I got is, how many buttons are there?
How many buttons?
324.
Buttons? What did you say? 324?
Yeah, 324.
How do I remember?
And have you ever pressed the wrong one?
Oh yeah, well, that can happen. Yeah,
That'll happen.
you got to know what it does though if you push the wrong one, and then so that you can undo it.
That's why there's two pilots up here, and sometimes if both of us press the wrong one and we don't know what we're doing, then Jen backs us up and she says, "Hey, you weren't supposed to press that button." So we're always backing each other up.
Oh man.
I think I figured out another feature on Zoom as I'm learning with all these people. I'm going to ask to unmute. I see some hands now. I just asked Mrs. Cortez, you're my test pilot, Miss Cortez. Did it work?
It worked.
Awesome. So if you have a question, because I see your hand raised, shoot it. Maybe, did you have a question, Mrs. Cortez?
Not at this time, but I think really going into what the boom does for the airplane, I think wrapping the kids' heads around that would be a good idea.
Yeah, that's like, we're going to the back. We're going to the back right now. That sounds like a good idea.
On the way back there, real quick, I'll show you how we climb in here. If there's this yellow grate right here, and we actually have to climb up a ladder to get in.
So it's like a jungle gym.
You're good.
All right, follow me. That's nice, a lot of space. And as we're walking back here, we're actually, so the floor is less than an inch thick. And underneath the floor is actually all the fuel tanks where we hold the fuel to give to our other airplane for gas. As you can see, there's a lot of gas. As we come up, I get a lot of questions about this. These are not bombs or minions. There's no bananas. This is our oxygen. So in case that we need oxygen in flight, we have it with us. And then we're gonna step down into my office, which is actually on the bottom of the airplane. That's pretty fun. So now we're at the underside of the airplane. I lay on my stomach and I got this chin rest here and I got this big window. And right now we don't have power right now, so I can't lift the door, but there's a door right outside. And when I'm ready to give gas, I'll lift the door up and then I get an amazing view. And then I can see the airplane that's behind us. And once I see the airplane behind us, the boom that's right now it's hooked to the airplane, I'll unhook it and it comes down and then I can fly it. And then I'll fly it into another airplane, which will be about 50 feet behind us. And they'll start moving in and I fly it into their receptacle. And that's when we connect. And once we connect, I can give them gas. And at that point, they're only 30 feet behind me.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's kind of my view. It's not much of one right now, but it's fantastic, I promise, once we're in the air. So the controls for me are actually kind of on the ground because I am on my stomach. So I have a lever here. It's called a renovator stick. So this stick will move the boom left and right and up and down. And then I have another lever here, which will move the boom in and out. And it's pretty simple. This is an airplane that is 60 years old and we're still flying it. So pretty neat. This plane has taken me all over the world. I have seen some really cool countries. I've had some amazing views back here. I really love my job.
I got
Do
a
we have any
question.
questions?
What does a boom
Yeah.
look? What does a boom look like?
Let me see if I got pictures on my phone.
So this is actually the position of how she works. She has to be laying down on her belly, right? And then she's got that chin rest right over here, guys.
So when you look out the window here, that's what I'm seeing. So the boom is this hose right here, okay? So it doesn't look very big, but that's actually like 40 feet right now. But that's another big airplane and I give them gas. That's a A-10. That's a little fighter jet. Those are my favorite. Those are really cool airplanes. They got a big cannon right in the nose there. So that's kind of what my view is when I'm in the air.
I'm going to try seeing what happens when I ask someone to unmute and ask their questions. Let's see how this goes.
Okay.
I asked someone, I unmuted you and asked, and I lowered your hand. So if you have a question, go ahead and ask your question. I'm gonna go to Aiden Palacios. I'm gonna ask you to unmute and then I'm gonna lower your hand. If you have a question, you could ask your question right now. All right, let's see again. I see Mila Martinez. I'm gonna ask you to unmute and then I'm gonna lower your hand. So Mila Martinez, if you have a question.
Have you ever gotten stranded flying the plane?
Have I ever what?
Like gotten stranded, like got lost while flying?
No, we have navigation on the aircraft that lets us know where we are in the air and relative to the ground. So no. And usually what we do is before we take off, we file what's called a flight plan so that it lets other like controllers and other people to know essentially what our idea is for the flight plan or path.
I got Scarlett Grace. I asked you to unmute and I'm gonna lower your hand.
How do you fly the plane?
Well, those are the two pilots. That's their job. They fly the airplane while I do the refueling.
Mhm.
So they use those engines and then they use that yoke to move the plane around.
Yeah.
So that's how they fly the airplane.
Yeah.
I see Alasia Taylor. I'm gonna ask you, oops, you just moved on my screen. You're gonna ask you to unmute and I'm gonna lower your hand. If you have a question, you can ask your question.
So if there was like 3 people in the plane and you had to get out, emergency exit, how would the third person get out of it?
That's a good question. You're the first person to ask that. So I have 7 different exits to get out of this airplane. So my other responsibility outside of doing the refueling, I'm responsible for making sure all my passengers are safe. So one of my doors here, I have a slide, kind of like the same if you were to go on an airline. So I pop the slide and then people can exit out of the airplane really quickly. And usually it's the pilots and the boom op. We're the last ones off just to make sure everybody got off okay.
A good question that was in the chat is how long have you guys been a pilot and a refueler?
So I've been a boom operator for 20 years. I really like this job. I don't know about the pilots.
I've been a pilot for about 20 years also. I flew helicopters for a really long time and now I'm flying airplanes.
I don't know where the other one went.
Brandon, how many years have you been a pilot?
Since 2013, so 8 years.
8 years for the other pilot.
And so flight school on the pilot side is about 2 years to go through flight school until you get to this airplane or whatever airplane you're going to fly. And how long is the training for you guys, Jen?
So for a boom operator, I graduated high school. I did really well on my tests in math and science. They gave me this job. And once I got hired for this job, it was about a year training before I actually did it on my own.
I'm gonna see about, I think it's Vanya Arakline. I'm gonna ask you to unmute. You could ask your question.
This is one for the pilots. How do they drive? How do they drive the plane?
So do you remember all the controls that we showed you at the beginning? Did you see that part of it?
Yeah.
So the throttles that you push those up and that gives the airplane power. So that'll turn the engines up to go faster and faster. And then once we get enough speed, then we'll pull back on the yoke, and then that will make you go up in the air. And then once you're in the air, it's kind of like a steering wheel, like in a car. If you want to go left or right, you just turn it left or right. And then if you want to go down, you press forward. And if you want to go up higher, you pull back.
I see Benjamin Martinez. I'm gonna ask you to unmute and I'm gonna lower your hand.
Have you ever fallen asleep while on your job?
Here for the other airplane.
Oh,
What was the question again?
I think he said, have you ever fallen asleep while you were on your job?
Oh, have you ever fallen asleep during the job?
No, you guys are recording this. I don't want to admit it.
That sounds like true.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna answer that.
We'll take power naps if it's a really long flight.
But you know what? Right above us, we have 5 bunk beds. So if it's a really, really long flight, we take extra pilots and extra boom operators. And that way we can take turns taking naps. So then the crew that is rested will be the ones flying the airplane while the other ones are sleeping. So we take turns.
All right, I see that my screen is going crazy with hands there, but I think I see Kennedy. It just says Kennedy guest. I'm going to ask you to unmute and lower your hand. Go ahead and ask your question.
Do you like flying the plane?
I love flying this plane. You know what? That's the best part of this job is that it's a job, but to me, it doesn't really seem like a job because I like doing it so much. I just get to go to work to do what I like to do. That's the best part of my job is flying the plane. I think there's a lot of other things I have to do on the ground, but flying is the most fun.
How much weight can the plane hold?
The plane, so in order to take off, it's by weight. So that's another part of my job. I got to make sure that the weight is to where we can take off, and it lets the pilots know how much of the engines they need to use thrust to take off. But the max for this aircraft is 322,500 pounds. It's pretty heavy. And what's interesting, this plane only weighs 125,000 pounds roughly. So that means we can use that rest of that weight for fuel or for cargo.
I see 2 great questions that are in the chat as well. It says, what kind of planes do you refuel? And then how long can you actually stay in the air?
So I can refuel all Air Force aircraft if they have a receptacle that's using the boom. There's another method that we can offload gas is through a drogue, which is it's a hose and it has a basket on the end of it, and that's used for fighter jets predominantly. Those are your Navy and foreign fighter guys like the French or the Germans or the Italians. So we can offload fuel that way to those different types of receivers. So I can refuel a lot of different kind of aircraft. We don't do helicopters. We're too fast. And some of these airplanes actually have those drogues, that hose I was talking about. Some 135s have them on their wingtips, and I can refuel 2 airplanes at the same time. But this airplane that we're on right now can only do 1 airplane at a time. And then how long, there's a lot of variables on that. If we're just like that story I told you about going over the North Pole, that's all we were doing. So if we're not doing anything, we're just trying to get somewhere, we can stay in the air. I think up to like 14 hours is the longest I've probably heard being on this airplane, which is a really long time. That's not a fun flight.
I see there's so many great questions and so many hands raised. I think it's Admir. Oops, I lost you now. You just moved. Admir Webb. I'm going to go ahead and ask you to unmute if you'd like to ask your question.
Did you ever crash?
No, if I did, I don't think I'd be here.
I've never crashed either.
No.
Knock on wood.
Yeah.
And then I have Devin Nicholas Mendoza. I'm going to ask you to unmute and I'm going to lower your hand.
Okay. Is there a downstairs for supplies?
No, we don't have it downstairs for supplies. When we walked to the back of the airplane, there's boxes and stuff. Those will have tools and stuff that we need for the airplane.
Okay.
Raymond Cuevas, I just asked you to unmute and I'm going to lower your hand.
What's the scariest part of being on an airplane?
Yeah, you kind of came in a
What's
little
the
bit.
scariest part of being on a plane?
Scariest part, there's not a lot of scary parts, but sometimes we get into like the clouds and it'll make it a little bumpy. Sometimes that can make me feel uncomfortable, but that's about it.
Cheyenne Wilson, I'm going to ask you to unmute and you could ask your question.
Are you guys in the army?
No, I'm in the Air Force. Same with these guys.
All right, and then I see, oh, sorry, I think it's Santiago. I'm going to ask you to unmute and lower your hand.
How old is the plane?
60 years old. That's the young one.
All right, I see Molly Hurdlick. I'm going to go ahead and ask you to unmute and then you could ask your question.
How do you sleep?
We have those bunk beds that we were talking about.
I have one more question.
Sure.
Who is the captain?
The captain? That's the captain.
No, Brandon's the captain. I'm the co-pilot. The captain's up there doing captain stuff right now.
He's on lunch.
And then I think I just asked Noah to unmute. Noah Turbington, you can go ahead and ask your question.
Did anybody ever crash a plane before?
It is happened, but it doesn't happen very often. It's very rare.
We go through a lot of training, so we're very safe, and we have a lot of like procedures and checklists and stuff that we follow. So we're very safe when we go on board.
Yeah, it doesn't happen often.
I see Jayla Nixon. I'm going to ask you to unmute and you can go ahead and ask your question. Jayla, did it click for you?
You clicked for me.
Okay, go ahead.
So I want to know if your gas ever leaks.
Sometimes just because it's a really old airplane, but we won't take it if it's doing that. We got to get that fixed before we'll go take off somewhere, because it doesn't really help us out if we don't have much gas to give anybody.
Actually, good question.
All right, Jayla, I think I got you this time, honey. Go ahead.
Do you guys talk to each other while flying?
We do. We have a headset that we wear, all of us, and it has a microphone so that we can hear and speak with each other.
Lucy Green, I think I just unmuted you.
So how hard is it getting your job?
How hard is it to get the boom job or the pilot one?
Let's just say both. I think she probably got remuted.
Okay, it's okay. So to be a boom operator, all you need is to graduate from high school, but you have to do really, really well on this military exam called the ASVAB. You have to do well on science and math in order to get this job. And you have to be really physically fit. But then for the pilots.
And then to be a pilot, you have to get a college degree first. And it doesn't matter what your degree's in, but it helps if you do something that focuses on math and science, because there's a lot of math and calculations that go into it. And then after you finish college, then you would go on to flight school. And then flight school is about another 2 years.
I see, let's see, Max. It just says Max. I'm going to go ahead and ask you to unmute and you can ask your question.
Is there parachutes?
No, there's no parachutes.
There used to be.
There used to be.
They took them away.
I think I just clicked on Carlos Galvez. You can go ahead and unmute and then I'm going to lower your hand.
Okay, first of all, my name's not Carlos Galvez. It's Aaron.
What's your question, Aaron?
When when you're flying and you open the window, do you hear that?
No, I don't, because there's a glass window here.
So
So
like in the front, because I saw the part where one of the captains said that when you can open the window.
oh, well, they don't open those windows in flight. It would get really messy up there. But the airplane is very loud. It's not like when you fly on like a commercial airplane. They have a lot of padding and stuff to make it where it's not so loud. Our airplane doesn't have that. It's really, really loud. That's the other reason we wear those headsets, is to protect our ears.
It's kind of like when I used to go to my teacher's piano class, because she had like padding around in like the section where she had her piano, because she had her baby, and my mom said that she had that because she didn't want the piano to wake the baby up.
Yeah, it kind of softens the sound.
And
We don't have that here.
And the reason, and I also knew why you had to get a science or math degree in the flight thing, because it's also the same, because you have to get the same degree if you want to go into space.
Yeah. You got to know how to do all those things in order to make sure that you're safe and that you can complete your mission.
Got a good one that's in the chat. It says, why did you want to become a pilot and a refueler?
I wanted to become a pilot because when I was a little kid, I went to an air show and saw the airplane flying for the first time, and I thought it was really cool. And I've always been fascinated with airplanes. So ever since I was a kid, I wanted to fly planes.
And then for me, I wish I knew what you guys know now, because when I got this job, I had no idea what I was getting myself into. I had just did really well in school, and so the Air Force offered me this job, and I thought it sounded really cool, so I took them up on it. So I didn't know. I grew up Army. My dad was in the Army, so I only knew Army stuff. So this was new and exciting for me.
What about you?
My grandfather was in the Army Air Corps in World War II. And so he is who inspired me to join the Air Force. And I wanted to be on the airplanes. And so that's what made me want to be a pilot.
I just clicked on, is it a mini?
It's a mini. And
There we go. Thank you, Amini.
I wanted to ask you if you ever get uncomfortable laying on your stomach.
After a while, it doesn't feel great, especially when you're like, but when I'm only back here when I'm refueling. When I'm not refueling, I'm sitting up front with the pilots.
I think I just asked Peyton Wong to go ahead and unmute.
Did you name the plane?
No, we didn't name the plane. They should have cool names. I wish we did, but it doesn't have a name.
Steve.
Just ask Ethan to go ahead and unmute and ask your question.
Have you ever been in a thunderstorm when you were refueling a plane?
Yeah. No. We got in some weather, but yeah, not in the thunderstorm. We avoid thunderstorms. We don't want to be near them.
So in the front of the airplane, when Brandon was showing you where the radar is, that tells us if there's a thunderstorm out ahead of us. And if it's going to be really bumpy or dangerous, or there's a thunderstorm, then we won't refuel right there. We'll look for somewhere else to fly to and then refuel.
Do you guys have time for a few more questions?
Yeah.
All right, then I've got Violet. Violet, go ahead and ask your question.
When you guys are flying up, do you guys ever get uncomfortable how the plane rides?
Sometimes we try to find smooth air, and we'll talk to air traffic controllers, the people that kind of tell us what altitudes to fly, and they know where the smooth air is. And if there's a lot of turbulence and it's really bumpy, we'll ask for another altitude. But sometimes you just can't find smooth air, and so it is uncomfortable. But we just kind of try to avoid it. But if we have to go through it, then we do sometimes.
It can be very peaceful and relaxing to fly, though, when you get to see the sunsets and you get to see the clouds, and it can be very beautiful. That's one of the fun things about flying, is just being able to see all the different parts of the world and how beautiful it is.
Let's see. I see Haven Roster House. I think there you go.
Do you guys have kids? And also, when did you get the plane?
What was the first part of the question?
I think she said, do you guys have kids? And then I think the other question was, when did you guys get this plane?
I don't have any kids personally, but the plane, this one was built in 1962. These aircraft specifically were built between 1956 and 1964. And they're very old, and we continued, and they'll probably fly for another 40 years or so.
And I have 3 kids. I have a 4th grade daughter named Kyla, a 2nd grade daughter named Kelsey, and then I have a 1st grader named Sawyer. And they're all in school right now, just like you guys.
And then I have a 12-year-old son. His name is Carson, and he's in 7th grade.
Jeremiah, Michael, Aaron Morgan. I got that one right there. Go ahead, ask your question. I just asked you to unmute.
How do you know how to fly a plane?
I went through school. Well, I went through training for about 2 years of training, and you start out with you have to read about it first, and then you take some tests, and then you go into a simulator, and so you learn how to fly on almost like a video game that moves. And then once you get through that part of it, then you go and you start flying the airplanes with an instructor.
So as some of you get older and get more interested, if you want to learn how to fly, I would go to your local airport and ask for some of the pilots around there to show you around some of the smaller airplanes, and they'll introduce you to the entry level parts of aviation. You can start learning as you kind of get closer to the age that you can drive. You can start learning how to fly if you want. And then really focus on your studies, focus on your school, focus on your math and your science, focus on getting into college if you'd like. And those are the things that can help you along your way to learn to get into aviation.
I got a good question in the chat. It says, how big are the wings?
Almost 135 feet. I think, right?
Yeah.
It's like, we're almost like a box.
134 something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then another one that I saw in the chat was, why is a boom called a boom?
Oh.
Well, I think it's kind of like a crane, because isn't there like the microphone people in Hollywood? They're the boom operators too. They hold this like boom device. I think that's the name of the equipment.
That's a good question.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah, because the boom's like a big boom, right? Like you said, a crane.
It's like a crane. Yeah. It's the name of the equipment.
It's lowered and held in the way. I think it's about the way it's controlled by the airplane.
Here, I've got Edward Zhang. I'm going to go ahead, or I'm sorry if I did not say your last name correctly, but Edward, I just asked you to unmute so that you could ask your question.
If you push the wheel down, like push the wheel, it goes down, and if you pull the wheel, it goes up. Then how do you fly it?
If you want to go down, then you, like you said, you push forward and you'll go down, and then when you find the altitude that you want to stay at, then you put it in the middle and you'll stay right there.
An airplane needs speed. It needs to go fast so that the air can go over the wings, and the faster you go, it creates something called lift. And when you move that wheel that you were talking about, where you pull it back or push it forward, that's what allows that wind that's going over the wings from the speed is what allows the airplane to change its position. So it's a mixture of pulling on that wheel that you were talking about, but also how fast the airplane is going.
Okay, Preston, I just hit you to unmute if you'd like to ask your question.
No, I don't have a question. Oh, wait, no. Are you guys like have to be like a major in math or science?
No, actually, I'm a business major. I think Major Comp, you said you were psychology, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so you can get a degree in whatever you want, but you have to follow the path. Like you need to know math and science pretty well. That's why it's helpful to have a degree in something like that, but it's not required. As long as you can follow the track to getting your licenses as a pilot. And there's different ways. You don't have to be a military pilot to be a pilot. You can be, but you can also be a civilian pilot. There's a lot of other ways to be in aviation as well.
And physics is a good subject to learn also. The math is really good because then you want to be able to add things up and subtract stuff in your head quickly. So while you're flying, so you can kind of be flying the airplane and do your calculations at the same time. And then physics will just help you understand like how motion works and aerodynamics and all of those kind of things.
All right, Mrs. Peralta's class, if you have anybody in Mrs. Peralta's class still, you need to leave to go to music. And if our guests can still stay, is it okay if we have more questions, or do you guys need to go as well?
No, we have time for more questions.
So again, Mrs. Peralta's class, you guys need to go to music at this time. And then I'm going to ask, let's see, is it Tariel or Tariel, go ahead and ask your question.
Have you guys ever got distracted by anything and got into an accident?
So we've never, I don't think any of us have ever been into an accident, but there's always distractions. And the thing with being a pilot and a boom operator is we have a lot of checklists and procedures that we follow. And so those written checklists, we have to follow them step by step. And when we do that, it keeps us from getting distracted and forgetting things.
It takes a lot of focus. So it's very important to learn how to focus as a pilot and a boom operator, and to be able to think, how we say, think on your feet as well, to think quickly. So the more you learn, the better you get at the basic things like Major Comp was saying with your math and knowing your checklists and everything else. As long as you're good at those things, then it helps you think through other problems when distractions do happen.
I see first grade Daniel Elias Dono. Go ahead and ask. I'm gonna ask you to unmute. You could ask your question.
My real name is actually Daniel, by the way, but I don't know what has birds go like in your face when you're on the airplane?
We got windows.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
the windows keep all the air out. So yeah, we can't have the windows or open anything, and so that's what keeps us safe is we call them wind screens.
So birds don't fly in it and like go around, like flying around the plane and stuff like that.
Yeah, the wind is designed to go around the airplane and it helps us, keep the airplane up in the air.
Oh, now I get it.
Mm-hmm.
How did you fly over the North Pole?
Oh, that's a good one for Jen.
In the airplane.
Oh. Is it cold or hot in the airplane?
That's a really good question. So this plane is super old. So it can get really hot or it can get really cold. So that's why I have my jacket on. I wear wool socks because especially here in the bottom of the airplane, it gets really, really cold. And the plane's so old, sometimes it doesn't heat very well. So I have to make sure I bring in extra things with me to keep me warm.
The airplane has a air conditioning system, just like your house does, where it tries to regulate the temperature. Because when you go really, really high in the air, it gets very, very cold up there. I mean, it's freezing. Human beings couldn't survive up there. It's too cold. So the airplane has to heat itself. So it uses heat from the engines and air from the engines to pump into the airplane. And that's what helps us maintain our temperature. But as Ben was saying, it can get very cold and very hot, depending on how it works.
Oh, but have you ever landed somewhere that you're not supposed to land to?
No, I mean, usually we're allowed to land where we need to. We plan where we're going to land. The only time we would land somewhere where we didn't plan is if we had a situation where there was a problem with the airplane and we needed to land sooner than later.
Wow. So your plane was made in 1962?
Yes, that's correct.
Wow. Old plane.
Ask them how many buttons are in the cockpit.
How many buttons?
Buttons are in the cockpit.
Buttons? What do we say, David? 324? That's good.
When I came in, I was confused. I didn't know what to do. I was going to say something, but I couldn't unmute. I was like, why? And then I had started recording because so I can show my friends. And after school, I can send it to my friends.
Cool.
This is pretty cool, huh? This is something we would never get to see if we were still at school. So our very last question will be Desmond. Desmond, go ahead and unmute.
I mute now.
Can we see the bunk beds?
Sure.
Sure.
Here, show them, David.
The what again?
Yeah.
Oh,
Buns are bunk beds.
the bunk beds.
These come down. Oh, these are tight on here.
Well, what happens if you fall off?
You get in that.
It's gonna be a big owie. We don't sleep on the bunk beds if it's bumpy.
So these come all the way down. I don't want to do all the straps. It's going to take a while to wrap them back up, but these will lay down. And basically you can have, I think there's five back here. So yeah, 5 different people can sleep. And when we bring other people with us, our maintainers, the people who help keep the aircraft fixed, they'll sleep back here while we're flying along on the mission.
I have so many great questions, guys. I have one other one that I want to know too. How long did you have to train before as a boom operator before you were able to do this all on your own?
Oh yeah.
So it took me 1 year and it's kind of fun. I was a teenager when I did this job. So you go through like a classroom first. They teach you about the airplane and aircraft. And then I had to go through water survival school. And then I had to go to land survival school. And then I went to the actual schoolhouse for boom operators. So said and done, it's about a year before I actually got to make my first contact.
So basically, how I like to look at it is basically 3 things.
Like what?
So it's almost like I always like to try to make it where, everything's attainable. So basically 3 big things and you nailed it. Yeah, yep. Go to a school, go to school, go to school. So only 3 things, guys. As long as you keep your mind on those 3 things, go to a school, go to school, go to school. You can do this too.
I like school because I really like to learn. I'm always learning. School is fun. Look what it brought me. I got to get this cool job. So stay engaged and stay active, and sky's the limit. Really, it is.
Don't take no for an answer.
That's
If somebody tells you can't do it, you can do it. You just keep asking different people until you figure out so you get what you want. And it doesn't matter who you are or what somebody tells you can or can't do. You can do it. Just keep fighting for it. And even when you get older, if you want to be a boom operator, you go to the Air Force recruiter and you say, I want to do this. You don't take no for an answer. You say, this is what I want to do, and you do it.
Love it. All right, guys. Well, we definitely took up a lot of extra time than what we anticipated doing. We had some really great questions. Like, look at how cool that plane is, guys. This is something I would never, Mr. Bolden would never let me land this plane on the backfield of Coyote Canyon. So I'm so excited that you got to see how really cool this is. So if you need to go back to your other classrooms at this time, go ahead and go back to your other classrooms. And then just a really big thank you to our flight crew today for showing us this amazing opportunity.
Yeah, thanks for spending your afternoon with us. I hope you guys had a good time.
All right. Thank you again. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.
Have a good day.